And there came a day unlike... Wait, no, that's been done. Who knows what evil lurks in... No, that is that other thing. What has yellow skin and rights? Ah, forget it. You're listening to Panelology. Excelsi, oh damn it.
Welcome to episode 259 of Panelology. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian.
Brian, do you know what this weekend marks?
Mark Wahlberg, I don't know what.
It is 5 years since we recorded the first episode of Panelology.
Oh my god. We've been doing this a long time, sir.
Yes. Eagle-eyed listeners may go like, the date for episode 1 is actually for the following week. Well, we had an unaired pilot.
We did have an unaired pilot, yes.
Jin's microphone was not turned on, and we were not able to use that episode. But we have now been doing this for half a decade.
Yikes. Wow. Wow. You really hate... man, I don't even know what to say to that.
We have seen 2 DC reboots now.
Yes. Yes, we have.
Panelology lasted longer than Rebirth.
Does that make it now Panelology Afterbirth? Or DC Afterbirth? Which I believe is a joke we made at some point when that
yes,
happened.
I believe specifically Mike made that joke. That sounds like a Mike Haynes
it does
special.
Sound like a Mike Haynes special. Yeah, which is super odd because going through our shared document site the other day, I did happen to stumble across the Panelology drinking game rules as well, which I thought was rather humorous. Yeah.
So anytime Jin snorts during this episode, we will finish our drinks.
Hey, we will. Right after I have my Hostess fruit pie.
All right, let's get into it. We have a special treat this week. In the second half of the episode, we will be cutting to an interview we had with Chris Grine, who I think I can call a friend at this point, actually. He is the comic creator adapting Animorphs, whose latest creator-owned graphic novel, The Secrets of Camp Whatever, recently came out. He spent some time talking to us about both of those books, especially Camp Whatever. He's also kind of a temporary co-host on Minds at York at the moment.
Yeah.
So that is coming up. But first, let's talk about this week's comics, or last week's comics. The most recent comics released.
There you go.
5 years later, still bad at words.
Yes, but we're better at recording those bad words.
That's true. Black Hammer Visions #3, written by Chip Zdarsky, art by Johnny Christmas, colors by Dave Stewart, letters by Nate Piekos, and design by Ethan Kimberling.
So again, if you're not familiar, the Visions, Black Hammer Visions series is different creative teams coming in to tell stories set in the Black Hammer universe. Specifically, at least so far, they've been set before they went to the farm, before they had their final battle and the first series took place. This one in particular is this is, as much as Black Hammer, all of it is kind of pastiche, right? Mm-hmm. This one is also, and very much so, to the recent Falcon and Winter Soldier story going on.
Oh yeah.
This is Abraham Slam. After he has retired, he is older now, and the government introduces a new superhero named the Slam, who carries a gun and like all of these things, and like he has a real tough time with it, and goes to confront him, and Chip very, very much knew what he was doing in not just telling a story in this universe, but capturing that pastiche feel of the original series, I think.
Awesome.
Um, because not only is there that, there's a scene where an African American family is leaving a theater and looking for their car and get assaulted by hoodlums, and the pearls get ripped off the wife's neck, and so we get that. Um, we get a very, very much a kingpin type character that shows up for a panel or two. Just like I said, just well done. I very much enjoyed this.
Awesome.
I'm enjoying all of these, but this one in particular I thought was quite good.
I look forward to checking these out when they come out in trade.
Yeah.
Batman the Detective #1. Written by Tom Taylor, with art by Andy Kubert, colors by Brad Anderson, and letters by Clem Robbins. So, Brian.
Yes.
Was I the only one surprised by the tone of this book?
Not at all.
Yeah, I think I've come to expect, and it's funny because maybe I shouldn't. If we talk about Tom Taylor writing in continuity superhero books, I expect something a little more optimistic normally, like All New Wolverine, like Nightwing, something that is more in the daylight in a way. But then I also remember he writes Injustice, and he writes Deceased, and okay,
Right.
maybe it's not all sunshine and warm feelings.
This certainly isn't.
But even then, this feels a little different. It's very almost melancholy on Bruce's part.
Yeah, it's not the borderline horror that like Injustice and DC Star, right? And I would definitely throw Injustice in that. I mean, it is a dystopian, like, yeah.
So this is set in the future.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how far necessarily, but it's a future where Batman is without a Bat family.
So, and this we do believe this is in continuity, correct?
I have no reason to believe it's not. It was solicited as sometime in the future.
It was. Which I'll be honest, the biggest kind of sticking point for me with that is there's no mention of Selina in it.
Well, though, all the language around Batman Catwoman has started describing it as an alternate future. Well, we still don't know in continuity what Selina and Bruce's answer is. They've given themselves a year.
I know, I understand that, but if they go back to them not having some kind of relationship, I'm not saying they have to get married and have the life that's presented in Batman Catwoman, all of that, but if they don't continuously have some sort of definite relationship, I think they have wasted an absolutely platinum opportunity.
That I definitely get that. I also don't think any of that falls at Tom Taylor's footsteps.
It doesn't.
At Tom Taylor's feet.
And they could have specifically the scene where that talks about him leaving the cave forever, right? The fact that they would put that kind of a definite thing in this and then not mention that in any way is the only thing that,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we also know the future is kind of in flux right now.
Yes, that's true.
There's a lot about the future of Batman,
right?
But also how much a future state comes true.
Well,
that is very much an open question.
Yeah, that's always been the problem with writing stories set in the future in comics, right? Is, when you talk about Legion of Superheroes, it's a whole lot easier, right? When you talk, what, 1,000 years in the future?
Well,
sure.
But even though looking more recently, the Batman Beyond run that just ended at the end of last year was set in the future of Earth Zero. It's that and the short run that preceded Rebirth are the only time that's been true of Batman Beyond. And we saw things that happened in present day have almost instantaneous effect in the future, like when Tim Drake disappeared in Detective.
Right.
He disappeared from Batman Beyond.
Yeah. And that was the kind of the next point I was making. I think writing things specifically like Batman Beyond are a lot more, I don't think they're impossible. They're a lot more difficult.
Well,
They
that
have to have a lot
worked.
more thought given to them. Yeah.
That worked because Dan Jurgens was writing that book, and Dan Jurgens was writing Action Comics, which was
Sure.
the whole Mr. Oz plot that involved Tim.
Right.
So he
Yep.
sort of knew what Tim's timeline trajectory was.
Yep. My point being, I appreciate it when they do give thought to that and make that consideration.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. How's that? Now, that being said, let's get back to this book. Damn, it's good.
Yes. The thing that I think sets this apart as unique to me is this is very much about a Batman asking himself the question, has it mattered?
Right.
And the inciting event for this story is what looks like maybe just some sort of terrorist cell killing off an airplane full of people in Batman's name.
Yes.
I don't want to say what he realizes at the end of this issue is the reason why that plane, but it raises the question, not only has he made a difference, but what happens if people undo the good he's done?
Yeah. The tone, or I guess the timing and the framing of the Batman that's in this reminded me a lot of the Ben Affleck Batman. From like Justice League, where he's older, he is a lot less certain about and he's starting to question, some of those things of like, have I made a difference? That kind of thing. Yeah.
I've seen some comments about this that have thought about Frank Miller's take on Batman.
Yeah.
And maybe this as an alternative to that. I think we'll see where this goes, and I can certainly see those sort of Tom Taylor threads that are places where this can have kind of like the end of All New Wolverine can have those sort of moments of reflection and revelation that are more maybe optimistic than what this seems at its outset.
All right, can we talk next about the other two people that are in this?
Yes.
Because I absolutely love this idea.
Yeah, it's really nice too. Now that we are in Infinite Frontier, to see these two characters who, yes, iterations of them were in the New 52, but they were in the New 52 and Grant Morrison's Batman Incorporated, which basically just got to keep going from pre-Flashpoint with minor adjustments. So it's nice to see these characters back in the world after they ended their run and these characters went back in the toy box. It's nice to see them out in the world again.
Yeah. It is Knight and Squire.
Yes, which I believe this Knight is the former Squire.
I believe that is correct.
And Knight has taken a new Squire.
Yes. All right. So, super brief because I have to set this up because it's my quote of the week.
Brian's quote of the week. Super brief.
So, Batman and Squire are investigating the scene of where this happens, and a different gentleman ghost shows up.
I love this whole scene, by the way.
Right. Which, Batman ends up fighting Gentleman Ghost and using these gloves that he got from John Constantine to actually fight the ghost, right? So then he goes and visits the Knight in the hospital where she's been injured. And she's, he's like, "Are you okay?" And she is like, "Yeah." "So I see you met my new Squire." And he's like, "Yeah." "Did you impress the hell out of her?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, come on." "I punched a ghost." There it is.
Yeah. I really like this Squire too.
And I love the just the happy smile that's on his face as he says, "I punched a ghost."
Yeah. See, that's the kind of thing where like you see those Tom Taylor moments.
Yes,
in this.
Absolutely. I love the Squire too, though.
Yes.
God, this is really good. I'm super happy.
I don't think we've mentioned this is the first part of a 6-issue miniseries. Strongly recommend it.
Indeed.
Let's talk about Batman Urban Legends #2.
our anthology book.
Yes. First up, we have Batman and Red Hood in Cheer, Part 2 of 6. This is written by Chip Zdarsky, art by Eddie Barrows with Heber Ferreira and Julio Ferreira. Marcus Toe does flashback art. Colors are by Adriano Lucas, and letters are by Becca Carey. I think of all of the stories in this issue, this is the one that maybe shows us, instead of a new layer, digs deeper into what the first issue introduced, into the character beats and relationships. Without, I mean, most of this issue is a couple of phone calls, basically.
Yeah.
And some flashback. But it's so good.
Oh my God, Chip just absolutely destroys me with this story.
Right?
This is just heartbreaking. And I mean, it absolutely shows on Jason's face and in his.
There's a sequence that ties together Jason explaining how he thinks about Batman as sort of another failed parent.
Right.
With Batman punching him out.
Yeah.
And it's like the starkest possible way to sort of make clear maybe this thing that's obvious when you lay out the pieces, but because of comics and storytelling over decades, like never exactly gets played that way.
Yeah. Oh. Wow.
Then we have our new one-shot for the issue, which I really dug. I was a little disappointed this is only a one-shot. I want to see more of this creative team. Oracle in Ghost in the Machine. Written by Cecil Castellucci, art and colors by Marguerite Sauvage, and letters by Becca Carey. I really liked this.
Yeah, this was a fun little... It was exactly that, though. I think if it was a story... It may not feel as light, maybe.
No, sure. Like I think this is a great taste of a Batgirl story,
yes.
a Barbara Gordon story, I should say. But I would love to see this team maybe give us a 5-issue miniseries, maybe do a run on Babs.
And you know what? Even if nothing else comes out of this, other than the fact that basically Barbara builds like this new tech suit. That lets her just walk around as Barbara Gordon in Gotham and still do everything she needs to do as Oracle.
Yeah.
And just the fact that, she is not in the same situation she was in when she was Oracle before, right? And the fact that she can get out and be out actively looking at things and doing things is very cool to me.
She's up against this villain called Vi Ross, who is a former
that is the most 70s supervillain name.
Well, hang tight, because I'm building to something here. She's this former epidemiologist turned like cyber criminal who uses actual pathogen spread as models for her crimes.
Yeah.
Did you happen to catch the name tag she was wearing at one point? Pat Hogan?
Yeah.
That is, in fact, the best.
Yes, I absolutely caught that.
Our third story is The Outsiders in The Caretaker, Part 2 of 3. This is written by Brandon Thomas, art is by Max Dunbar, colors by Luis Guerrero, and letters by Steve Wands. I love Black Lightning and Metamorpho together in this. How great are they?
I do too. We also find out who is kind of behind this.
Yes, and who the titular caretaker is.
This is not something I foresaw or saw coming.
It was funny because we get a little bit of Katana speaking in a mix of English and Japanese. And I took a little Japanese in college. I took a year of it. I have forgotten most of it because I don't have a chance to use it. But one word I remember is Okasan, which at one point she addresses her captor by, I'm like, mother?
Yeah.
And then a page or so later, we learn it is in fact...
her mother-in-law.
Yes.
Who is upset that she has lost the soul of her husband, of Masia.
Yes. Which... It's really fun, by the way, to read this in light of the John Ridley
Yes.
other history of the DC universe. Like,
Uh-huh.
the idea that Katana is sitting there in this situation like, no, this was never true, but I'm going to commit to the bit. Like, I don't think it's meant to be read that way, but it's a fun sort of lens to view basically everything she does now.
It is. It absolutely is. And of course, it's comics, so who knows what.
Yeah.
Why are they both not real? Because, sure.
Yeah. I will not be surprised if the third part of this gives us our explanation for, in future state, why was Black Lightning living lightning?
Oh, that could very well be, yeah.
Yeah. Our final story, Grifter in the Long Con, Part 2 of 5. Written by Matthew Rosenberg, art by Ryan Benjamin, colors by Antonio Fabella, and letters by Saida Timofonte. So we learn a little more about Halo here.
We do.
We learn that it was a part of Grifter's creation.
Mm-hmm.
And we also learn that, like, there's maybe not a strong relationship between Lucius Fox and Grifter, but a long one between them. Lucius Fox was part of the team that made Grifter into who he is.
Yes. We also get introduced to a new character named Chance Adibi.
Yes.
And I absolutely her I will say, to start out, this is my favorite Grifter story I have ever read.
That actually sounds right. I like Grifter a lot for someone who's never loved most of the Grifter stories I've read. Like, he's a character who shines through, I think, in those.
I think you're absolutely right. They almost go in a bad direction with it, but I should have known, knowing who's writing this, that it would not. But like when Chance shows up, he says that, he thinks that it's a cop, and he's taken their hand. He's like, "Here, I'll give you back your handcuffs." And then she opens the curtain. He's like, "Or you can use them on me if you want." She's like, "Gross." He's like, "Yeah, that was me trying to be cute. Yeah, I got that." And like, then there's this awkward thing where they trade some stuff, and she's like, "Well, yeah, I'd probably be already gone if you didn't have your shirt off," or something like that. And he's like, "Gross." It's right back. Like, they are absolutely, you see them completely here as equal. Like, there's no one way or the other, and it is, yeah.
And then we learn that she is his boss.
Yes.
Yeah. I also like this story ends with the I'm assuming beginning of a conflict between Grifter and Red Hood. And I like the idea of these two characters sort of at odds with each other.
Can we talk a minute about the note that he leaves?
We cannot spoil the note that he leaves, but we can voice our appreciation for the note that he leaves.
I mean, I think the note itself doesn't give anything away. Like, the circumstances of it certainly do.
Well, the way it's signed certainly does. I don't want to spoil that.
Okay,
anyway.
Fair enough. Yeah. Oh, it's, yeah. I beautiful. Just beautiful.
I'm glad to see that, as excited as we were for the idea of this, like, just Gotham anthology book, that it is just firing on all cylinders.
I 100% agree.
Then we have the Joker #2. I remain mad that this book is as good as it is.
I don't, not in any shape or form, because holy shit.
I don't want to read a book about the Joker, but...
Well, you're not.
I'm not.
You're reading a book that has the Joker in it, but it is.
Our main feature here is, of course, called The Joker. It is really Jim Gordon. This is written by James Tynion IV, art by Guillaume March, colors by Arif Prianto, and letters by Tom Napolitano. I think there's one major reason why we want to talk about this story, this issue.
There is. Before we get to that,
do, because I think we have to call spoilers for that.
We do.
Before we get to that, let's talk about maybe generally the story, and then let's talk about Punchline, and we'll come back to the big bit.
Can I say just how the hell much is going on in this book?
There are a lot of moving parts.
Wow. Like, the whole Santa Prisca thing.
Uh-huh.
right? You've got that going on. You've got obviously the part that we're going to talk about in a bit. You've got the storyline that's going on with the person that hired Jim Gordon.
Yeah.
That's not going to be small.
Now, I feel like in a lot of ways, this book is going to be the sort of thing that follows sort of a parallel path to what's going on in Batman, and then come maybe the end of a year of storytelling, the two sort of come back together.
Well, and I get the feeling that the whole part of this that has to do with Joker right now, that he's actually in, it's going to be its own thing here for an issue or two.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. But yeah, so holy cow, yeah. But just not only the setup, but the actual character conflicts that occur in this book are...
Oh, they're incredible. And like, I forget sometimes how much I love Jim Gordon.
Yeah.
And this issue is a great reminder of just the ways in which he will commit to the bit for the good of the bit, for as long as that is healthy and sustainable. But the fact that he can recognize when that stops being the case.
I mean, it's why he was such a good cop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Same instincts, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Punchline before we come back to the thing we want to spend some time on. This is written by Sam Johns and James Tynan IV. Art is by Mirka Andolfo. Colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr. And letters by Ariana Marr.
Colors be beautiful.
Colors be beautiful. Art be beautiful. Writing be beautiful.
Yeah.
We meet a new character here who is not a character I expected. But I like that this character sort of exists, and I like the take he has. I hope he is on the up and up here. In the course of investigating Punchline, Bluebird finds, through like a series of conversations with former classmates, finds this guy who like everyone described as her best friend, her right hand, her whatever. Yep. And she finds him breaking into a condemned dorm building. And what we learn is, yes, he is Alexis K's best friend, and he does not know what happened to her to make her Punchline.
Right.
He does not recognize Punchline as Alexis, and he wants to get to the bottom of how his friend went bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Not my Alexis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not what I expected at all, but I really like that.
I like that too. I do. And then we got the second storyline going on where it's actually her in prison, right? Kind of, she's taken over from the Queen of Spades, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we find out what the Queen's play is to regain her throne, shall we say.
Yeah. We're going to call spoilers now, because Jim Gordon makes some requests of Batman. And Batman mostly acquiesces to those requests. Under one condition.
Yeah.
Gordon will not kill the Joker. He will call Batman and have Batman bring him in.
To be more specific, and I'm being specific because I think it's critically important in this, is he's not saying, he doesn't tell Jim Gordon not to kill, because he never assumes that. He says, don't go after him and try to bring him in alone.
That's fair. In the context of Gordon's narrative, like that
Correct.
is what I'm describing is sort of Gordon's binary. Batman's binary
right.
is...
But I want to make it clear that it never even occurs to Batman. Well, I don't know that it doesn't occur to him. He never voices that it occurs to him. And
Gordon says, yes, that makes sense. Oracle is on...
We have to talk about how Jim got Batman there to talk to him, though.
The tiny bat signal?
He literally has like a big flashlight with a bat thing on it that he just shown out his window.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, that's how you summon Tiny Batman. Hold me closer, Tiny Batman. There's the episode title.
There it is. There it is.
So, Batman also says, I will have Oracle on comms with you. Oracle says, yeah, cool. By the way, he didn't say he agreed. He just said that makes sense.
Yeah.
Batman realizes what is going on.
Yep.
Jim Gordon throws a smoke bomb, metaphorically.
Oh, I think it's bigger than a smoke bomb.
A truth bomb, if you will,
Yeah.
literally. And addresses Oracle as Barbara.
Yeah. Yeah, he said, he didn't actually say he would agree to it, just that it doesn't make sense. And his response is, are you sure you're not just worried about your old man, Barbara?
Yeah.
I felt equally as shocked as Batman and Barbara are displayed in that moment. Holy crap.
And,
and
Gordon's monologue goes into, and now Batman's wondering what else I know. How long have I known this? How long have I sat on? The other thing I love in this, there are so many things I love. Gordon never actually confirms or denies in his monologue whether he knows or not. He just acknowledges he knows Batman is wondering.
Correct. The other thing is, I don't know if you picked up on this, but after that little bomb, he still never gave an answer.
Oh, I know. Oracle invites him to the watchtower, to the clock tower, to have a chat. They go for a walk and talk and unpack all of this. We get actually some. I mean,
yeah,
this entire issue is great. The heart of this, the single, like, yes. I would not be surprised if come the end of this series, whatever this series looks like,
yeah,
I would not be surprised if we don't still look back on this issue and say this conversation between Jim and Barbara is the best thing about it. It is an incredible, like, comics history moment.
Can I also point out, as I talked earlier about how much I love them not forgetting about things, right? Being consistent with continuity. Mm-hmm. The fact that there was something that happened in Batgirl number 50.
Yep.
Yeah. Where Jim said to Barbara, I blame Batgirl for what happened to James. And like, they don't forget to do that. They bring that back up, and he's like, yeah, I did. That was a heat of the moment thing. That wasn't fair. But just the fact that they acknowledge that takes all of the potential sting or, anything else out of it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also this great little bit in the art when they're talking, and he's talking about how he's still, like, whenever he closes his eyes, sees the Joker, right? That idea that sort of thematically at the core of this. We see the Joker in sort of that Killing Joke costume reflected in his glasses.
Yes, and I don't want to forget this in the talking about. So Barbara says, I noticed you. She points. I noticed basically you still never answered that question, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, well, that's because they didn't hire me to bring him in. They hired me to kill him. To which she's shocked, right? And she's like, but you're considering it. And he's like, well, I'm not considering it. Yeah. And there's like just this panel of dead silence between them. And like Barbara is not outraged at this. Right? Which is the first.
Well, she understands.
She does. And, her answer is, I won't help you kill him. And he's like, yeah, I know. But here's the thing. I will tell you, I won't kill him unless I can convince you that it's the right thing to do. Right? Like he's basically telling her, yes, I know that specifically in the heat of the moment, I may not be able to make the right choice in regards to this. So I'm kind of giving you permission to be my conscience.
Well, I also like the other side of that, which is he's talking about taking this job so he can retire, so he can be a whole human. And I think a part of that math is, like, if he's going to make sure Barbara's taken care of when he's gone, he's going to want something to leave her. If he is just going to be a retired person, he probably doesn't want to feel like some sort of imposition on her. I imagine these are normal things one thinks about when retiring. I don't know. I'm a millennial. I'll never get to. But there's something in that reads as the sloppy way, maybe, to write it, is I'm doing this for you. And this reads as a version of that I think is more emotionally aware. That is, I'm not going to do this with you being a factor in my decision without your being okay with it.
Correct. Right.
And I like that sort of emotional nuance.
Yes, I do too. I do. Super good.
Yep.
Oh my God, so good. This was a bombshell. I loved it.
Ready for more. Locke Key, The Sandman, Hell and Gone, #1. Written by Joe Hill, art by Gabriel Rodriguez, colors by Joy Fotos, and letters by Sean Lee.
So yeah, this is our first setup piece of this story, and it has I want to be clear on this. This is not the current day Locke family.
Okay.
These are this is some of their ancestors. Specifically in 1927 is when this is set.
So is this around the time that Sandman got locked up, leading to Sandman #1?
Funny you should say that.
Okay.
This is immediately prior to that.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, she goes to visit someone. So, we get the story that her younger brother it was in World War One, right?
Mm-hmm.
And uh, was fighting, and to escape the chlorine gas that was coming for him.
Is this the same branch of the Locke family who we followed in On Pale Battalions Go?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Which I think is why that came out before this.
Gotcha.
Right?
I'm just connecting all kind of dots.
You
all kind of dots here, aren't I?
absolutely are. Yeah. So he escaped back to the house, and some soldiers followed him and killed the mother. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like that whole thing, and then he couldn't deal with that and killed himself. So now, essentially, kind of both of them are in hell, and it's driven the father to, basically near insanity, trying to deal with it. So it's one of the daughters that we follow in this story.
Okay.
And she goes to visit Witch Cross in England to talk to someone, because she is prepared. She is trying to find a way to get to hell to make a deal with a demon
Mm-hmm.
for her brother and mother, and wants to know how to do that and how she can make the best deal, but make a good deal, essentially, right? And she has found out that somebody here maybe has somebody she can talk to that will do that. And so she shows up, and the son is wearing the gas mask ish helmet of the dreaming.
Yeah.
And of course she doesn't recognize it as anything. He's like, yeah, I like to wear it when I lay down and rest because it gives me cool dreams. Right? And we find out that she is trying to make a deal with this guy's father, who is the person who captured Morpheus.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's who she wants to talk to. He doesn't say anything to her. Part of that, though, is so she ends up coming back, and it really is more about this guy's son and her, because she gives him the Anywhere key, because he has always wanted to go to America. So she lets him take a brief trip to America while she rests on his bed wearing the helm and the gem amulet.
Mm-hmm.
And because she is resting wearing that, she wakes up outside the House of Mystery and ends up going in, and everybody mistakes her for Morpheus in a new skin because she's wearing the raiments of his office, right?
Yep.
And wow, it's God only knows where it's going to go from here, but this is just a great big mess. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
It sounds like a lot of fun. Homesick Pilots #5. The end of the first arc?
Yes.
So we had said after #1 that this was a contender for both of our favorite books of 2021. Let's check in here at the end of the arc. Brian, how do you feel about that statement?
That Ghost Kaiju's for the win.
Yep. Yep. I definitely think this will still be clocking in at or near the top of my list of favorites for the year. Unless the second half of this year is just unfathomably buck wild.
Yeah, this book is absolutely, and the setup for the next part. I can't wait.
Yeah.
We so good.
We almost just have to call spoilers for this issue as a whole to hit the highlights. If you haven't been reading this, You definitely should be. If you don't know why yet and want to hear the spoilers, okay, cool. Spoilers. Amy makes the house into a giant robot by coordinating with all the ghosts that haunt it and taking control of it.
She Voltrons the house, yes.
Her friends are in danger. Her friends, and let's also say Meg, who is
And
still
Meg.
alive.
Oh, wow. And is covered with the blood of her friends.
Yes. Like,
yes.
Straight up end of Carrie.
Yes, like can't get it off, covered in their blood.
Yeah.
Yes.
She goes to save them from the government agents, sort of government agents, who are working with TFT, the cassette tape, or video cassette tape, to take down the house. One friend goes with her, one friend stays with the government and with Meg.
Yes.
And we get a little time jump at the end.
We do, indeed.
And as government's going to do what the government does, it decides to find a way to weaponize Ghost House and builds its own ghost house for Meg to pilot. Some Evangelion vibes maybe there at the end.
And what is this new creation called?
Well, it's the Nuclear Bastard.
Of course it is. Oh, I can't wait for this.
This book is just the fucking best.
It is.
Caspar Wingard's art, I say every time, but every time it's more and more true. Just next level.
No joke. No absolute joke. And just the way the art, the way it's colored, fits this art so absolutely perfectly.
It does. There's in that like time, like right at the end before the time jump, there's this panel where like it's the next morning and you see like soft green grass and you're like, wait, when was the last time I saw green in this book? Really, really smart use of color.
Yeah.
Also, Dan Waters can write a book. Aditya Biddekar's lettering is always some of the best. Everything about this is just...
Everything good.
Perfect. Tom Muller design.
Panelology, good book of approval. I think.
Yes. All right. One more before Is It Still Good? Spider-Man, Spider's Shadow #1. This is written by Chip Zdarsky. Art is by Pasquale Ferry. Colors are by Matt Hollingsworth. And letters are by Joe Caramagna. This is the beginning of Marvel putting a real new push on What If. Chip has designed a nice little What If logo that makes me think a little bit of the Criterion Collection, which I think is sort of a cool way of maybe thinking about this. This is a 4-issue miniseries, hopefully the first of many. And it's basically asking the question, okay, what if Spider-Man never took off the symbiote suit? And one of the things I think that works really nicely about it is you get specific, recognizable plot beats, but I think it works well regardless of what version of that story you've seen.
Yeah.
It doesn't get super deep in the weeds in the whole Battle World Secret War thing. Like, that's basically prologue. You start with Peter waking up and he's already still wearing the suit. You see him at one point go to Reed to study the suit, and he refuses to take it off. It's so much just watching this suit kind of feed on him. It very smartly uses the fact that with the hindsight of so many versions of this story in popular culture, we know where it's going. The story knows we know where it's going. So it sort of leans into that monster feeding on Peter kind of energy. And you get this really great, very Peter Parker explanation for not giving it up to Reed. You're telling me this is a living thing. Well, if it's a living thing, I can't just give it over to you to study and keep in a cage.
Uh-huh.
And it's clear that, like, it's already influencing him. His anger as he says that, his defensiveness, all of that is clearly being exacerbated by this. We see him fight and unmask and threaten Hobgoblin. And we see that come back after he refuses to take off the suit to bite him. This goes to a much darker place by the end of the first issue than I expected it to in the first issue. I have no clue where it goes after this, and I am very excited to see it. Cannot recommend it enough. Pasquale Ferry and Matt Hollingsworth's art is fantastic. We do get at the end of this a new black Spider-Man suit, Venom, Peter Parker design that's very creepy and very cool. So I definitely recommend this. Even if like you don't read a lot of Spider-Man comics, if you just know the Venom story from the cartoon or whatever, I think you can still get a lot out of this. Is it still good? Eros Psyche #2. We start to learn about maybe some of the constant emotional trauma being inflicted on the students in this school. The Last Witch #4. Brian.
We get introduced to a new character who is amazingly awesome, and Sharice starts to hunt down the next Wind Witch.
Proctor Valley Road #2. Brian.
August takes it upon herself to go find the missing boys, and let's just say I guess she finds them.
The Next Batman, Second Son, Chapter 7. We see the fallout of the police's raid on Ratcatcher for the police, for Renee Montoya, for the Fox family. And that all really comes to a head in a conversation and a conflict between Luke and Lucius. Rorschach #7. Our main character has a sit-down with the latest witness to Rorschach's ongoings, Frank Miller. Superman #30. We have the main story, The One Who Fell, which is about Superman getting a call from a planet far away about this entity, this sort of shadow virus that consumes all light and almost destroyed the planet that he had helped contain years and years ago. And he and John respond to this and learn that something is not right on this planet. There's also the Tales of Metropolis ambush bug. This picks up the story we saw in the first issue with Bibbo Babowski and these two sort of puppet master aliens. But this is Ambush Bug in a conflict with one of them, and Ambush Bug has some moves.
Ambush Bug does have some moves, yeah.
Wonder Woman #771. We have Afterworlds Part 2. Diana tries to investigate the mysterious missing warriors. Thor does not give a fuck, and Diana does not care for Thor. But maybe she starts to make progress when she meets a one-eyed man hanging from the World Tree on her way to steal an eagle's egg to give to Nidhogg to get a key. And also maybe don't trust Ratatosk.
Maybe so.
We also have young Diana in the Lessons Learned backup. This picks up where the last issue's backup left off. Diana's now being taught the history and to tell the stories of Themyscira, but learns that maybe some of those stories are lost, and she wants to find them. Children of the Atom #2. Brian.
Oh boy. Turns out everybody still loves Dazzler.
Yep.
The big conflict may be whether the code name should be Daycrawler or Nighty Nightcrawler. They have the Children of the Atom have a rematch against Hell's Bells, and Storm and Mystique pretty much tell the Avengers to fuck off.
As a quick aside, how great is the way Vita Ayala writes Storm?
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, they don't. They essentially say, okay, you came and told us what you wanted to tell you. It's our deal. Now, why don't you deal with the fact that these idiots are passing this law rather than trying to make it about applying it to just these mutant kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daredevil #29 to complete the Quadarski. Daredevil has been poisoned. Elektra has taken on a protege. And we learn Foggy Nelson's most important lesson. You can't punch a dancing man. Fantastic Four, number 30. This is King in Black tie-in. Ben and Johnny say some things that they shouldn't, but that are also true. Guardians of the Galaxy, number 13. We see the Guardians in their new status quo as superheroes and not just a band of fuck-ups. Being pointed at or intentionally finding problems to fix in space. And maybe one of those problems is a fire-worshipping Skrull cult from centuries earlier. Power Pack, number 5. Brian.
This is the last issue of this little run. The kids have to fight Wolverine, the evil twin of Wolverine. And we find out that all of the Power Kids apparently should go into theater because, oh my god, this is the best little production I have ever. This is amazing. You absolutely, even if you don't read the whole thing, you have to read this scene.
Okay.
It is so good.
Does this make it the case that Wolverine is the best at what he does and what he does is very not nice?
Nope, he is. Let's see. It's actually in here. Hang on.
Nope. Then don't spoil it. Make me read it. Make me read it.
You will have to read it. It's actually in here.
Okay. The autumnal number 6. As we near the equinox, Kat realizes that maybe desperate measures are called for, and everyone else thinks maybe Kat has lost her mind. The picture of everything else, number 3. Holy fuck, this book is also good. The Englishman paints his perfect ideal of Paris, and because his whole thing is changing reality with his painting, Paris transforms into that ideal. And now we take you to 3 days ago and our conversation with Chris Grine. We're here now with Chris Grine, who is adapting the Animorphs books into comics, has recently released his creator-owned graphic novel, Secrets of Camp Whatever, and has written some other things that maybe we'll get into too. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks
welcome.
for being had.
I feel like I've been had.
That fits. That fits.
Chris is at the unique disadvantage for our guests. He has recorded 5 episodes of Minds at York with us now. So I'm under the impression that we have rapport and that I can torture him a little more than a normal guest.
Absolutely.
And I just do that with all of the guests.
I would be disappointed if you guys don't. I mean, come on.
Before we dig into it, we will ask you the same question we ask every first-time guest on Panelology. As a fan, how did you get into nerdy stuff and comics?
So, like, nerdy stuff beyond comics? Or
Any of it.
specifically comics?
Any of it, all of it. Like, a lot of the folks we have come through, their answer is, well, comics by way of Voltron, or by way of... I mean, for me, it was cartoons, adaptations of comics before comics. So, like, however that story works out, there's no wrong answer.
I actually didn't get into comics really until middle school. Believe it or not, I kind of lived very rural, and to the best of my knowledge, we really didn't have any comic stores near us. So it just wasn't something that I had access to. But I was always, Saturday morning cartoons, and then movies and Transformers, and I was kind of a kid of the '80s, so I had, Masters of the Universe, Transformers, G.I. Joe, that kind of stuff. So I kind of made up my own nerdy stuff. Super into Star Wars and all that. But it was about middle school where one of my friends had kind of introduced me to Wolverine, who, I mean, believe it or not, I'd gone almost through the entire 7th grade before I really was aware of who Wolverine was. I mean, I just was so out of the loop. But I immediately, we did find a comic book shop, and I bought almost every issue of Wolverine.
Wow.
Over probably a summer. And I was totally into that. I just loved the storytelling, and that kind of got me into it. And then I kind of got onto Jeff Smith's Bone. Also, The Tick, the original run. I think it was
Yeah.
12 or 13 issues, I think, but I've still got those. And even stuff like that. I quickly learned like I really liked Wolverine and I like good storytelling, good grounded stuff like that. But then I really craved humor, like the things that were funny, or at least things that I thought were funny. And they were kind of few and far between back then. I mean, there was always somebody doing something, but there just wasn't as many things to choose from. So, but that's kind of how I got into it.
So did you from then on like actively want to get into writing comics, drawing comics, creating comics, or was that its own sort of separate journey for you?
I don't know because I remember just from a very early age, like kindergarten, and I was drawn before that, but seemed like kindergarten, first grade, where I was creating my own characters. I wasn't doing anything with them, but I would create these characters and I would draw them over and over, and I would have them doing different things. So whether or not I was aware of it or not at the time, I was creating my own characters. I was creating stories for them. So it was kind of a precursor to writing comics and just doing sequential art and stuff because I used to do little flip books. My dad would bring home giant pads of paper, like almost like gigantic post-it notes, but I swear there must have been like 200 of them on this stack. I would do these wild, probably very terrible now, if I ever had a chance to look back at them, but just little, little animations and stuff. So I was always telling stories and doing that. It wasn't and I even remember middle school and high school where I was creating characters, and probably high school I was creating superhero teams, but they were always wacky and silly and never really went anywhere kind of a thing. But I was always happy to be doing it. And I didn't even consider being a writer. I was always just wanting to be an artist. That was always what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until, a little later, post college actually, that I realized that I actually would like to write these stories too. So that's it was kind of weird. I mean, I know a lot of friends who just, peers that I work with and stuff who grew up they were completely surrounded at all times by comics, and they know every comic creator and artist and letterer and colorist and writer, and they know all this stuff. And I just feel so out of the loop when they start talking shop like that because I just didn't grow up with any of those influences. So I'm kind of trying to catch up now, but I guess I'm probably rambling a little bit, but
Oh no, you're good.
Well, I can tell you all of those drawings that you did served you well because you're certainly doing a great job these days.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into Camp Whatever. So where did this come from? What was sort of the genesis of this idea for you?
I think kind of similar to a lot of my ideas that I have, like whether it was like I don't know if anybody's read, like Time Shifters and stuff, but Camp Whatever it kind of came together from several different pitches that I had done. Like I knew I wanted to do a book with cryptid characters. Like I really was into cryptids. I love backstory, and I really wanted to just throw a bunch of them together and do like some kind of story, but I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. So it kind of just sets, as a half put together pitch kind of a thing. And then I had another idea where there was these kids who and I was still kicking around this cryptid idea where maybe there was a street in their town where all these cryptid characters like lived, right? And they were kind of, that's where they were forced to live. So there was a little bit of other things going on in the story too, where the people really didn't like them, having these monsters and stuff, maybe attending the same school as their kids. So it was segregated, and I had all these like other storylines I was going with, but that got a little too much for kind of where I like to go with stories. I like where it was going, but I just couldn't figure out what to do with it. And they all kind of sat there. And then one day I was thinking, I'd like to do like a camp book, like a summer camp book, but I don't know what I want to do with it. I don't want it to just be a summer camp story. And then I was thinking, well, maybe there's monsters. And then I was like, oh my God, I've got all these like half put together pitches. And so I started going back through all my files, and I kind of realized I had the bones, of this story already within like 2 or 3 different pitches that I had. So I kind of started it from there, and that's kind of where it started.
So it kind of sounds like the summer camp idea was the one that kind of triggered all of it to come together.
Kinda. And the thing was too, is like when I had the idea to do a summer camp, there was like a million summer camp books coming out. And a lot of my publishers that I work with, whether it was Scholastic or whoever, they were like, the camp stuff's kind of been played out, or there's too much of it in the marketplace right now. So that was one of the reasons why I'd kind of put it aside for a while. And then when I came back to it, it seems like everybody was kind of open to the idea again. So it must have sat there long enough to kind of come back around.
All right. So I'll ask, where did the idea of Willow come from?
Well, are you talking specifically about her like deaf or hard of hearing?
That's part of it, but also just the character in general and her personality.
Okay, well, for me, I'd always focused on like boys, right? Most of my characters in a lot of my books were just boys because that's or male anyway, and that's just I think a product of because I'm also a male, you know. It was just like it never really occurred to me to do a book with girls and stuff. But to get to your point, I have a daughter now who just turned 13, and so I have like this perfect model kind of in my house where I can just watch and see the craziness that's happening with her and all of her friends and everything. And that was kind of where Willow came from. Willow's kind of a combination of a lot of my daughter's friends and my daughter herself too. And it just was something I thought it was kind of a challenge for myself too, to write for girls instead of boys, even though I don't personally think girls really act that much differently than boys do. I know my daughter doesn't. I mean, she's just as gross as any boy I've ever hung out with. You know, she's got a real dry sense of humor, and I just love that. So that was kind of the reason why I was trying to do a more girl focused story.
I guess having one of each. I guess the only thing I say is sometimes it seems like girls maybe realize maybe when they shouldn't say things more than boys, and that's not it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of started going with it, and I was going to just see where I could go with it with the character. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it or not, but I was fully willing to give it a shot, and I was really happy with the way it came out.
I would agree with that. I think it's an excellent character.
So you mentioned the fact that Willow has hearing loss.
Yes.
When did you make the decision to let this be a part of the character and to actually, I mean, I think use really well signing and the fact that she has a hearing aid and she turns it on and turns it off, or the batteries, like you use that really effectively, both to move the character forward, but also to sort of give you extra tools in storytelling and in communicating and in how you put what's going on the page.
I don't want to take like too much credit for like being so thoughtful of all this stuff. But like I have a nephew who is 17 now, I think, but he was born with hearing loss in both ears. Not fully, and they didn't actually diagnose it until I want to say like early elementary school, that he was because he was having trouble in school and all that. So now he has 2 hearing aids, and although he doesn't use sign language or anything like that, but he did attend a school like that for a little while. So he did. I believe he learned some of that too, and that was kind of where I was coming at with Willow too. Like she has hearing aids to help her hear. She hasn't always been deaf. I was saying like she had gotten sick at some point, but she knew how to communicate prior to that. So she, in my mind anyway, she attended a school maybe where she lived before, where, you know, she was surrounded by kids who actually only spoke with sign language. So she picked it up. She knows how to do that. And that was just kind of part of, it kind of helps her, you know, like it did in the book a little bit too, when she didn't have the hearing aids functioning or whatever. It helped her get through a little bit. But for me, that was kind of where it started. I was with my nephew, and just seeing how the family kind of dealt with different things, little curveballs being thrown at them over the years, and they've done a really amazing job with that. And I just kind of inspired by that. That's kind of where I started. And when I was working with my editor at Oni, I mean, she's very big into you know, diversity and inclusion with everything, and I am too. But sometimes I need to be reminded of that. I don't know. It just never occurs to me, and I guess that's just I'm just probably I don't know. I know I'm stumbling over my words a little bit. I wish that that kind of stuff just came naturally to me all the time. She kind of helped me through that a little bit, and I realized right away that that was going to make the character so much better, so much more interesting. If you know, to have something like that where she is kind of has to overcome that a little bit. But I didn't want it to be. I didn't want it to define her, and I just wanted it to be something she has, that she deals with. But I didn't want that to be, how she is defined, and that's why I was. Um, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit or getting off topic a little bit, but that was something I tried to address in the story too, when people would call it out, and she just doesn't want to be that person. She doesn't want to be singled out as the person, with a disability of any kind, because she can do everything everybody else can do.
I was actually going to make that comment. I think you actually do that really, really well. It absolutely does not define her. At the same time, she does not shy away from it at all. Like, it's just part of who she is, and I think you did a real good job with that.
Thanks. Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to come up with. I just didn't want. I don't know. I think it would have been really easy to slip into something where she was just trying to come, get around that, or struggling to find the word here for that. But
Yeah.
I just didn't want that to be the focal point of her. I didn't want that to be the first thing somebody used to describe her.
Right. Exactly. So let me ask about the other character that I think is kind of an interesting, and that's the new camp director, Mr. Tudor. Where did he come from?
Oh, I don't know where he came from, but I enjoyed writing his dialogue so much because I just wanted him to be. He clearly does not want to be there, or he's there for other reasons.
Right.
He clearly doesn't like kids, and he's got no filter, so he just says what he's thinking, and I just really enjoyed writing that. I would laugh like when he's doing the whole presentation on the first night, when he's just going on about he doesn't want anybody to get lost, because it's not because he would feel bad, it's because he just doesn't want to deal with the insurance, and it's so, and that was just something I really liked, making him just a jerk. I probably enjoyed it too much, but I think that's he's not a very super three-dimensional character. I mean, he's basically just that guy who doesn't want to be there, or doesn't want to be dealing with the kids, doesn't want to deal with anything to do with camp. He's trying to do this other thing on the, kind of on the side, and keep it secret too at the same time. And
yep. I think he works. I think part of why he works, at least for me, is that it seems like you made a choice that he's not necessarily evil. He just has his own agenda.
Right. Yeah. He's not he's not
right.
an evil person.
Right.
He's just, he knows what he wants. He's came to that island for a specific reason, but he's having to deal with this other thing.
Like, if you let Tim Curry play Captain Ahab, you end up in his neighborhood.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the supporting characters, I mean, Willow is fantastic, but a lot of the supporting characters throughout this really give it a lot of the life, I think, that's in it. I mean, the twins are like this amazing absurdist mess every time they show up, and I love them so much, even if they are just absolute shits.
Oh, they really are. I think we all knew kids like that, though, and that was kind of where I was pulling from.
We absolutely did. And I think you used them the appropriate amount. I think they're a character type I personally think can get overused sometimes, and I absolutely loved the amount that they were in here.
They were a great distraction. Anytime I needed a distraction, they were great for that.
Yeah.
And Tudor hated them, and so I love that they picked on him the most too, because I mean, he deserved it, but yeah, he just.
And then I think, at least for me, my final character that I absolutely loved, and just loved how deftly he was handled with his introduction, was Mr. Elric.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You are certainly, I don't want to say you're led to believe kind of one thing about him, but like, you wouldn't be surprised if, he turned out to not be such a great guy, or like, they're not immediately taken by him. They're just, they're cautiously friendly. Like, You would be. I, I think what that's on the whole, that's what I love about this entire story is all of especially all of the girls are very realistic in how they approach people. There's no like overreaction to things or not reacting enough to things. Like it all seems very appropriate.
Thank you. Yeah, that was I try to when I write characters, I try to like I don't fully script anything out when I'm going. Sometimes I just start penciling. Like I know they have to get from this scene to the next scene or whatever. And
Mhm.
so sometimes I'll just start penciling pages and kind of making up dialogue as I go. And I find that sometimes that is the most natural way. I find I'm as far as dialogue goes, and it feels less scripted to me, I guess. And sometimes I'm even when I'm after I've scripted the book and I'm actually lettering the pages, I will be actively changing the dialogue as I go to make it a little bit more casual, and which is why I can never hire a letterist.
I was gonna ask. So is this just your way of working where you're writing and arting and lettering and everything?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, it's all me.
Well, beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it can be exhausting doing it that way too, but I just found the way I write, I could never hand it off to somebody to letter it because I'm constantly changing it, everything. And I mean, I guess I could maybe hand off the coloring, but I'm just so I don't know.
It reminds me a
I
little bit
don't play
of
well with others, I guess.
well, no, I think it reminds me kind of because I was thinking this earlier when you were talking about your story of like how you got into it and how oh you weren't surrounded by comics and you don't know all the letters and all this and my thought then was uh, you know what though it there is no wrong answer or it's not like you're not part of you're not a creator because you don't know all the letters and grew up in comp like all of everything is valid and your style is just I think what works for you and it's the results speak for themselves. So.
Thanks. Yeah, I've it's I don't know if you guys want to take a little side journey here, but um
Always.
Oh, we are the big tangent folks. Yeah, let's go.
so okay, so back in 2004 probably when I was working at Hallmark designing greeting cards and I worked there for about 15 years after college, but while I was there, I was like, I should probably try to get back into comics because I've always loved doing that. I just don't know. I don't know anything about it. And at the time, I didn't know anybody, you know, who I didn't have any peers who did it. I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. So what I did was I just created this little 24-page little comic. Then I went on to all the indie publishers. At the time was like Dark Horse and Oni and I think Top Shelf too, and a couple of these other guys that were all creator owned stuff. And they had little submission guides at the top where you could click on that and it tells you, who to mail it to. So I did that. I went to work on the weekend and printed out like 30 copies of this book and mailed it off to anybody, not knowing that that's really not how it works. I found out after the fact. Most people go to comic conventions and show it to people and do it that way. So here I am mailing these things, not having any clue what I was doing, and I got like rejections across the board within a week, which actually didn't bother me. I was surprised that there was any response at all, and they weren't like negative. They weren't like hurtful or aggressive or any way. They just were like, nah, not really what we're looking for, but thanks. Keep up the good work, kind of a thing or whatever. So I kind of just kept going with what I was doing and taking their advice and changing some stuff. And I was just reworking it when editor at Dark Horse contacted me again, like 6 months later, to see if I had made any of the changes or done anything new or whatever. And that's kind of how I got my first book, Chicken Hair, at Dark Horse. But then I found out like a year later from that same editor, she was laughing at one point saying, yeah, it was just sitting on like a pile of submissions in the corner of a room and like nobody ever takes anything from that pile, but I guess it had fallen over. And my book just kind of slid out and somebody there saw it and was kind of interested in it. And at the time, I think Dark Horse was thinking about doing like an all ages imprint. So they kind of saw my stuff. And that's kind of how it happened. Everything I have accomplished in comics has been completely backwards from everything anybody has ever told me. So I just go with the flow now. I try not to fight it and I just go with it.
Like sometimes that's all you can, or the best thing you can do. Like if something's working, why turn around and change what's working just because? I mean, if you're doing no harm, obviously,
Sure.
just because it's not how anyone else gets in or gets noticed.
I've just discovered over the years that the more I try to accomplish something, the more it never happens. But the minute I take my foot off the gas pedal, that's when everything happens. So I've tried to just chill out about it and just kind of do my thing, and not really worry about too much of it and just stress out or anything. Just do it. If it'll happen, if it's going to happen, it'll happen. Took a little while to get there, but you know.
So I gotta say, probably the only thing that disappointed me about this is poor Violet never got her unicorn.
Yeah, well, I don't want to give you any spoilers, but there might be. This is a 3-book deal, so
Oh boy!
which
All
is
right.
something else that is pretty exciting for me because, like, when I wrote Time Shifters, I had envisioned that to be about a 3-book deal, a 3-book kind of story, and it never went past book 1. So book 1, I don't know if you guys have read it, and it's fine if you haven't, but there's some odd stuff going on in book 1. I mean, there's the story kind of, it's a one-off story, but it still leaves leaves it open at the end for the rest of it. But I had planted a lot of seeds that, at least for now, aren't going to be growing. And it's funny because some of the criticism I've had has been about those things, like, well, these characters were just so weird, like all these henchmen are so bizarre and crazy. But I just want to grab people and go, there was more. There's so much more.
That's the kind of thing where I don't come back and I say, well, this was weird. I'm like, no, this was weird. Give me more.
Yeah,
Give
right.
me the weird. I want the weird in my veins.
So, but on this, this is the first time I've ever had like a 3-book deal, like a creator-owned thing, where I knew going in that I was guaranteed 2 more books. So I could take a little time and plant some seeds, and drop some breadcrumbs here and there, and do a story that pretty much kind of from start to finish, but still leaves it wide open for more stuff to come. And I'm in the middle of lettering book 2 right now, and I'm really happy with it.
So I have, I think, a pair of questions that sort of fit together here. The first is, if you're working with an editor, but otherwise on your own, on a creator-owned book like this, as sort of loose as your process is, as much as you are rewriting, reinventing as you do more work, how do you know you're done? How do you know you're ready to let go of it and say, this is it, this is the final thing, or this is at least a finished draft for my editor?
Oh, for that part, I thought you meant, because otherwise I would have said when they send me the final book printed, that's when I know I'm done. For me, like, okay, so for a very long time, I worked with like stuff like Dark Horse with Chicken Hair and a couple other little things I did too. And comics is different because at least from what I've experienced, where a lot of times they want to see like 8 or 10 or maybe a few more pages and a synopsis and stuff, and usually they say, okay, go ahead, that's good, go ahead. But when I started working with Scholastic, they want to see the entire book penciled and lettered. That's the first draft, the entire book. And at first that was infuriating to me and exhausting to have to pencil like a 200-page book and then letter it all with finished lettering, and then send it in to get notes on if there's change, then to find out that there's changes with pages and panels and stuff, which is sometimes very hard to just take out a page or a panel or move a panel around. They just, the pages either flow or they don't. And sometimes taking out a panel or trying to force one in there can really kill the flow of it. So the first couple times I had to do that with Scholastic, it was kind of frustrating. It was part of the deal though. It was whatever, you got to do it. But now I'm finding that I actually prefer it that way. And I've started doing that with like Secrets of Camp Whatever, which is with Oni. But I still am doing like the entire penciled book with finished lettering because I find that it's so much more clearer for them. I don't have to constantly be trying to explain, well, what's happening here in this page is this, or I didn't write it very clearly there, but this is what it says. So now it's at least clear. They can follow the story. Usually I'll drop in, I do like 3D models in SketchUp. I know a lot of people do that. a lot of times I'll have like those in there, very temporary models and
Mm.
stuff dropped in there to show the buildings and things. But I don't know. I kind of find it's the more I can show and be very clear about what I'm showing, the less problems I have later. Or the problems are very obvious to everybody. They can clearly see what's missing or where it needs more too. So it actually saves me time in the long run.
So there's no
No.
I want to revise this perpetually, and an editor has to like drag it out of your hands at the end of the day.
No, if anything, no. If anything, when I hand the editor something, I'm like, I want to believe that that's like 99% done. Like as far as the and my editor at Oni, who was actually my editor at Dark Horse, Shauna Gore, way back in the day, she is so wonderful to work with. But I think she gets my sense of humor and she understands how I work. So she knows exactly how to push and pull to get what she needs. And if it's missing something, she's really great about telling me nicely that I have to fix something or if something's not working. But usually I know. So usually I already know if something's not working, but I turn it in anyway and see if anybody else catches it. And if they don't catch it, then well maybe I won't.
Maybe you were second guessing yourself.
Huh? Yeah, maybe. So that's kind of. But honestly, once that's approved, and sometimes before it's approved, I already start inking it. There's just with the way I do 2 graphic novels a year, I don't have time to do a lot of second guessing or rewriting or.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, this was not a small book. This is
no, it wasn't. I did that in 6 months.
I find that quite amazing.
That's
I mean, I couldn't do this in 6 years, so that's.
I just get in a rhythm. Like I'll have like I know when I'm inking pages, I can ink like 7 pages a day, and it's all digital, so it's 7 pages a day. And if I get done with that, then I stop. That's like my treat. If I get done with those pages, then I can go have the rest of my day if there's any left. And the same thing with coloring. I can color like 5 pages a day. And even if I finish early, I don't push myself further because then I just end up hurting my hand or doing whatever. Or I'm not as productive the next day. So I've gotten really good at pacing myself and knowing when to stop.
That's smart. I know a lot of creators like really struggle with burnout because they just push to the limits constantly, and that's not sustainable. Like they say that's not sustainable. They just do it anyway. So the other kind of flip side of this letting it go question, this sort of how do you break it down, how do you know where to stop, is with Secrets of Camp Whatever coming in as a 3-book deal. How, because the first book leaves the larger world there to play with, but kind of finishes its own story. It feels complete.
It does.
As part of a bigger picture. How much of a plan did you walk into book 1, or do you have now, in terms of like, this is where, I mean, you say you're lettering too, so obviously you've got a lot of it answered by now, but this is where book 1 ends. This is where book 2 ends. This is the end of book 3. How do you sort of build out that process for yourself, knowing this is going to be something spread out over 3 years that you won't touch 2/3 of until the end of that first year?
That's a great question. I guess I kind of knew where the first one was going to end. For me, it's like I know where they're going to begin and when they're going to end, and then I just have to fill in the middle, and like the wherever is in between that is the book. So I knew where the first one was going to end, and I knew exactly what I was adding into there, where the breadcrumbs were, right? So, and I tried to do it in such a way that it wasn't completely obvious. There's probably some stuff that you would be like, yeah, that's totally something he's going to be doing in the next book or whatever. But I tried to leave enough of it open. Like even that creepy dude, that dressed like a clown with the balloons. That guy, there's a reason. There's a reason for that. And so it's just, I mean, like I'll just tell you guys what the reason is too, because I don't think it's going to be a big deal. But that guy was a hunter, and he snuck onto the island, and he was hunting, and Elric caught him doing that, and hypnotized him and sent him back home. And now every year he's hypnotized to stand on the dock and tell everybody how great Camp Whatever is.
That's amazing.
He hates it, and he has to dress like a clown and stand on there all day. He hates it, but that's like his backstory. Like that wasn't just a random thing. That actually plays a larger part in the story.
And
there's more to it too. What exactly he was hunting is, I'm not going to spoil, but
Yeah.
I tried to think everything out as much as I could.
And the only thing you can say is you're going to love it. I love it.
Yeah, you're going to love it. Yeah, he was so creepy. Because like, I have a balloon. You're going to love it.
The only people I think I would maybe question in this is, and I guess they kind of question themselves, is her parents when they hear about all of these things that happen at the camp. And then, you know what? Go on anyway. You'll be fine.
Yeah, like a kid went missing while her father was there. No big deal.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that like at breakfast with his wife. That's the first she heard of it too, so I was really appreciating that.
Oh, that was so much fun.
That's great.
And I don't, there's her brother, her little brother too. His name's Griffin. That's actually my son's name, Griffin, and he acts the exact same way. He's just a little turd. He's a sweetheart, but he can be a little turd. And I'd had this idea in my head where, if these books did so great, it would be cool to do Willow's whole story, right? And then go back and do a parallel story with it just focused on her brother getting to town and going to the house and having ghosts and stuff in the house that he's dealing with. Or maybe Willow comes and goes in the background per this series with their interactions that they have. They cross over in that way, but that just sounds exhausting now.
I'd read it, but
absolutely, yeah.
I get exactly what you're saying too.
And he comes across exactly like every younger sibling, be it male or female, where they hate their older sibling, but they want to do everything that they're doing. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, and I'm getting to explore that a little bit in the second book too, because some of the story takes place at their house.
Okay.
And so there's definitely some interaction with her little brother, who basically they're just my two kids. It's like my boy is 7 years old and he's a turd, and his older sister is 13 and she's equally a turd. So to each other anyway, and exactly. So that's something I really enjoy, their interaction, because I pull from real life on that.
So we've mentioned the second book a couple of times. Do you have a rough time frame? Do you know?
I believe that comes out not this summer, but next summer.
Okay, excellent.
And I can't remember why Oni wanted to do that, but I kind of didn't mind, because so the first book came out in March.
Yeah,
and,
like last week of March.
Right, and so the next book comes out, and it takes place about 2 months later, and it's set kind of close to Halloween. So even though I'm not really doing a Halloween thing, the town itself and some of the houses kind of decorated like Halloween, which I love. So that's kind of just fun. It's just in the background. And then the third book will be set about 2 months later than that, closer to like winter. Like, it's not going to be a Christmas thing, because like not everybody celebrates Christmas, but I'm so excited to do snow. Just have all that stuff happening in snow and stuff with all those different cryptids and stuff. I don't know. Yeah. I'm really excited about that. So
excellent. Any inspirations that you that led you into any of this?
I can't think of any specifically, but that's not to say that. I mean, I watch so much TV and movies and cartoons and stuff. I think it's all had an impact on me, even subconsciously. I can't point to anything directly, but I just love fantasy stories. I love like movies like the Spiderwick Chronicles and Legend, and I specifically Legend I like a lot, because I don't know how familiar you guys are with that, but there's like the scene where Lily is running through the field at the beginning, right, to go find Jack, right? But there's just like little things flying around in the air, and I'm sure it was just bugs, but the way it's lit and the way it's being filmed, it looks like little fairies and stuff, and there's a warning about staying clear of like toadstool rings and stuff. And even though they don't really address that anywhere else, I just love that magic feel to it. Like it's a world that exists, and it has existed forever. And these are just people who are kind of experiencing part of it. And it's things like that that I kind of draw from.
Well, I guess one of the other things I want to comment on is uh, in the art, specifically in the coloring. I love the variation. There's some times when you very specifically use shadows to as part of the story, um, but the lighting in general, I love how dynamic it is. Like the panels where she's waking up in the mornings are like super bright, right? And then, as it goes through, it gets the colors change and get the shadows grow longer, and I love that use of light that you have in.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's color is something that it was really hard for me for a long time. And I'm not saying I'm amazing at it or anything, but just I struggled with it for a very long time. And um it wasn't until Scholastic came back and picked up Chicken Hair, because it was originally Dark Horse Black and White, right? So Scholastic came back in 2012 and they wanted to pick it up, but it had to be colored. And they were like, well, we'll just hire a colorist. And I was immediately like, no, this is mine. I'm going to color it. But I could tell that they were hesitant because I hadn't done anything. So I actually had to almost kind of try out a little bit on my own project. I had to use sample pages and that was a real struggle for me because up to that point, I hadn't really focused on how I did color or how I wanted to do color. So there was a lot of experimenting with that. And I tried to, like, one thing that I try to do with my shadows, and I know a lot of people do this too, but I try to use like mostly like pinks and purples and stuff for shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And because I love Pixar movies and their lighting so much, there's a lot of purples and pinks and stuff in all of their shadow work. And I just try to do that as much as I can because I just think that that's just gorgeous. To varying degrees of success, I will attempt that. So I'm pretty happy with where I'm at with color, but I do try to push it. And I will say that this book was extra difficult with all that fog.
I was
Oh
gonna,
my
yeah.
God. That fog took quite a while. And there was lots of um what's the word? I was, masks and stuff to keep it off the characters in the foreground because I use it also as a way to like separate, elements and stuff, foreground
Mm-hmm.
from the background. And sometimes there's like 5 layers of fog. There's one in the foreground, there's one in the middle ground, and the background, and it's just oh my God. Some of it was just exhausting doing some of it, but I was so happy with the way it came out.
Yeah, the fog was immediately impressive the first
Yes.
time it showed up. Like,
Yeah.
you absolutely knocked that out of the park.
I just like the idea of it hiding so many things on that island. Like there's just so much fog and it's kind of there all the time. And I just love that idea that anything could be hiding there.
Yeah.
It also saved me some illustration time because I could just hide. I could just not draw where the fog was.
So, anything else you want to talk about, or Brian, any other questions you have about Secrets of Camp whatever before we talk a little bit maybe about Animorphs?
I can't think of anything. I'll just comment. Yeah, like I think the story's wonderful. The art, I absolutely adore your style, and again, the coloring and lighting. It's right up my alley. So
I would like to add one thing too, though, if you don't mind.
sure.
And this is just kind of a funny little thing that I have spoken about a little bit in some interviews and stuff. But like the title, Camp Whatever, people have so people have asked a couple times like, where did you come up with that title? That's it's different. And originally, and for almost 2 years, this book was called Camp Nowhere, and I was so married to that because I'd had it for so long, right? And then about halfway through me working on this book, another comic series called Camp Nowhere was announced. And it's nothing like mine, obviously, but it is still a camp book and it's called Camp Nowhere and it's a series. And I was like, damn it. So I was so married to that, though, it's really, really hard to switch gears, to come up with anything different. And for a couple weeks, I struggled with trying to come up with something else that I liked. And my editor was trying to help me, and they had their marketing people were trying to throw out suggestions. And, when I was already frustrated, anybody else trying to throw out a suggestion just immediately sounds stupid to me. I'm like, no, that's not what I want. And eventually I started my editor was like, so what are we calling it? And I'm like, we're just camp whatever for now, just whatever. I don't care. That was kind of how that happened, was me being so over it, trying to come up with and I ended up really liking this title a lot, but and I tried to use it as much as I could in the title, where people would be like, and I know you guys probably saw it too, where they'd be like, it's camp, whatever, ... whatever.
Right.
Because in the story, like, nobody remembers the name of the camp, and so they just refer to it as camp whatever.
Yeah, I love that there's always that ellipsis, camp whatever. Like even the sign, as like they come up to it, like the sign is blocked, you can't see the name of the camp on the sign. Like, it's a running bit, and I'm always a sucker for a running bit like that.
Indeed.
Yeah, then you probably like the fog leeches then too.
I did. I liked the fog leeches. I liked the oh shoot, what's the dream that they're well, I won't spoil it because it's
the possums?
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, there's definitely something. That was one of those. I was like, this is something. I don't know what this is. I have no idea, but it's something.
I put her. I don't know if you guys were really looking at the details, but the counselor is wearing like a shirt, like her nightshirt she's wearing is like a person dancing with a possum on it at one point. I can't remember if I wrote anything on that shirt or not, but she's definitely wearing a shirt with somebody dancing with a possum.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here at like 2 a.m. sometimes drawing these things, laughing and going, I don't think anybody else is going to think this is funny, but I'm just doing it.
Well, there are at least 2 more of us who think
there
it's funny.
There are at least 2 others, yes.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, thanks.
So let's talk about Animorphs a little bit. We've spoken over on Minds at Yerk about it, but in case anyone who listens to this hasn't jumped over and listened to that, you are currently adapting Animorphs into graphic novels.
I am.
The first one is out. Have you wrapped on the second at this point? Okay.
Yes, it's completely done.
I guess first question, how is it? Because I think we talked about this a little bit when you were finishing up with one, and just not knowing how it would be. How is it going back and forth between working on a controlled IP versus doing your own thing? Like, how much shock is it sort of switching gears between these books?
It's a little bit of shock, but one thing I do like, because I was even just telling you earlier, that like I'm sitting here lettering and working on the second Camp Whatever book, right? But I'm listening to your podcast of like the episode 3 of Minds at Yerk, where you guys are talking about the third book, which is what I'm going to be doing probably starting in like July. And so I'm ramping up the whole time I'm working on this book, because this book's already been thought out and done and written. So there's not a lot to think about at this point. So I try to switch gears as early as I can, at least get myself in that mindset. So then when I am done with this book, it's a little easier for me to transition into writing. But the nice thing is with the Animorph stuff, I don't really have to write it. It's already written. I can just start penciling it. And when I come to a point where I want to add jokes or change stuff or move things around, I just kind of do it on the fly. And then if it doesn't work, I just go back and fix it. It's a little jarring, though, I will say. There's a part of me that's going to be really happy to be done with Camp Whatever as much as I like it, because going back and forth sometimes is hard. And I will say that I was offered the job because it's insane to do 2-3 book deals, graphic novel deals in 3 years. That's 2 graphic novels a year. I don't think any actual sane person would choose to do that. What happened is I got the offer to do the Animorphs books. It was a 3-book deal, and then contracts have to be written, and it just took forever, and I don't know why. I think Scholastic they just do things differently, right? And it took forever. Then it had to go to Michael and Catherine Applegate, and and that took a lot longer too. And then it had been like 6 months. And I was like, I haven't had a paycheck. I don't even have any work started. I can't just sit around. This could be another 3 or 4 months. I don't know what's going on. Or for all I know, it could just completely fall apart. And then I've waited for nothing. And so an editor from Oni, my old friend Shauna from Dark Horse, had said, hey, we're kind of wanting to do some more all ages type stuff. Do you have any pitches or do you have any ideas? And I said, I certainly do. So I sent her some stuff. She was really excited about this Camp Nowhere book series, Camp whatever. And I was like, okay, that'll be cool. And then they came back and said, hey, would you want to do like a 3-book deal? And I've always wanted that. So I was like, hell yeah, I'll do that. And the day I signed that contract was the same day I got my email back from Scholastic going, hey, green light, we're sending you the contract.
Wow.
Like, so that's basically how that happened. Yeah. And I wasn't going to say no to Animorphs. I mean, come on. I'm just going to make it happen. Even if I don't sleep for 3 years, that's just going to happen.
So, right, I actually don't know off the top of my head. Is there a date for book 2 for Animorphs?
I think it's October 5th.
Okay.
I'm looking at a site that says October 5th. So
cool. It's probably a little early. I imagine you're probably a little limited in what you can say about it. But is there anything in 2 that stood out to you as? I mean, 3 has the obvious new big problem that you've got to wrap your head around for storytelling that we'll get to. But was there anything in 2?
Let's circle back to that too, Alex, just a minute, because I thought of another terrible thing I have to draw in book 3.
Oh yeah,
that I'd like to talk about. But let's do your book 2 thing.
Was there anything in book 2 that was either surprising to you, hard to wrap your head around, like you thought, okay, I've got one in the can, this'll be smooth sailing now, and then just totally pulled the rug out from under you?
No, book 2 I felt like book 2 was pretty straightforward. There was a couple parts where it was really, really difficult for me to figure out a way, since they already do thought speech, right? That's how they communicate when they're the animals, to have Tobias secretly communicating with Cassie, calling Rachel out, right, for doing what she's doing right in front of her without Rachel knowing what was being said. It was very difficult to convey that. So I did my best. Do you know what scene I'm talking about? Like when
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It was visually, it was really hard to do because it was really hard to do without overly explaining. Well, yeah, I'm just talking to you. Nobody else can hear me right now.
Which is literally what they do in the original novels every time somebody does that. They always take the time to explain, oh yeah, this is just one-way communication, not a group message.
So you guys will have to let me know if I succeeded with it, but I kind of took a shortcut on that and then addressed it later also.
So what you're saying is they just slip into a DM, is that?
Kind of.
Pretty much. Thought speech DMs.
There you go.
Pretty much.
So you said you had something come to mind for book 3.
Well, yeah. So like book 3, I know I've discussed with you already. I've got the Tobias thing where he's constantly talking to himself, right? Where he's having inner turmoil, and it's already going to be a challenge to kind of show that, like how he's having an inner conversation with himself almost the entire book, without having like a bazillion word balloons that don't make any sense flying around all over the pages. So,
and also he's a bird, so it's not like you can rely on a ton of facial expression either.
Exactly. But then today, when I was listening to your podcast, I realized I also have to draw a giant invisible ship, but I have to be able to show that it's there. And I've also got an extremely crowded mall set in the 90s where they're doing a gymnastics event show inside. So, multi-level mall with probably thousands of shoppers and stores, and yeah, I'll get through it. But dang.
Look on the bright side. You make it to book 25. They're just hanging out in the snow the whole time. That'll be nice and easy.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you can just use your fog from camp whatever and have that disturbed by the invisible.
I think just before that scene at the mall happens, I think it'll just cut to later that night, and they'll just be summing it up. Man, do you remember when you flew through that window? That was crazy. Yeah, and I threw that ball just at the right time. Yeah, man, good job. That was awesome.
That's like when we act things out on the podcast, right? It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be. Oh, another thing in book 3 that's going to be a little difficult is the opening with that really weird live commercial idea. That's just not like nobody ever did that. So I'm going to have to figure out something else that isn't just a live television commercial. I just know I am. I'm going to have to come up with something different. Otherwise, I'm going to be laughed out of the room.
I feel like there's got to be a super cut of like hyper regional local access channel footage, which probably is still a ridiculous thing to say. Maybe I'll be right there out of the room with you for even suggesting that.
So you tell me what you think of this, Alex. You get to be the person who makes the call on this. Okay, this was what I was thinking about doing. I was thinking about having that used car lot, and then maybe the news is there interviewing him, like a live interview of the guy who runs the place, and maybe Price Cut Polly. But he's not doing a commercial. They're interviewing him about something. So it's still live, and it's still at the car dealership, and he still has the bird, and he's still a jerk. But it's not just a weird live used car commercial. Not even new cars.
I definitely get, the live commercial thing, I will grant you, is I think you're right. I think that's an elegant solution. Like, why would they be live and also have a bird?
And a used car lot. I mean, that guy's not making that much money to have live television. I just can't imagine. But anyway, so that's what I think, at least for right now, at the time of recording this podcast, that's the kind of way I'm leaning.
Cool.
Is that cool? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it makes complete sense.
All right, well, I'm blaming you. I'm going to refer.
That is fine. There is evidence. There's evidence in the public record. It's all my fault.
No, I'll figure it out. I just kind of back and forth on it.
Gosh, Alex, just think if that happens, you'll never ever get to do Animorph adaptations as graphic novels.
Well, I already think that ship has sailed. There's someone way more qualified than me already on that job.
That's my point, yes.
At some point, though, Alex, I'm going to die, and they're going to need somebody else.
I still think there will be people more qualified than me.
Because there's no way I'm doing 54 plus books. I'll be dead.
I have always hesitated to speak aloud, but that's like a 27-year deal.
Yeah, even if I just did 2 a year of those, yeah, I'd be like 70 something.
Oof,
yeah, I don't know if that's something I have to have. I don't have to have that.
There are a few of them that you can either skip or combine or make some clever edits for if need be, especially once you get into some of the later books that weren't written by Catherine and Michael.
Well, let me ask you this then. I guess we're getting sidetracked here on your podcast, but
yeah.
So a lot of people have mentioned, well, you could combine some books, and it's a thought that I've had too, and a couple other people have had. Just throwing them out there, right? But so let's just say we combine 2 books, right? What do we call that book? Do we give it a new title, or is it just one of those 2 books title? See, that's the problem. That's where it starts getting kind of hairy.
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely have to solve that.
Or do you just bring in elements from the book and that you're basically just pillaging and throw it into another book?
I mean, I think it probably at some level depends on which books you're cobbling together. Like, if you cobble together the trilogy where they recruit David, that's just kind of its own thing. You probably are taking equally from each of those books. There are a couple of books that are like the Animorphs go to the Arctic, the Animorphs go to Australia, the Animorphs time travel, and then none of it ever actually happened because time travel erases itself once you go back.
So just skip those, bro. Ultimately, this will be up to Scholastic. They'll be the ones. They'll be the ones making the decisions on this stuff. But it is stuff I like to think about.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, there are some titles where, like, you've listened to enough of the show that I'm sure you've heard Meg or me turn to Tim and go, so what do you think the title was actually talking about? And then we agree that, like, there's no clear answer. Some of the later books, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is the solution? Well, okay. What was the problem?
True.
That's just me pulling a random title. That actually may be one that made sense. Who knows? But I mean, would I read 54 Animorphs graphic novels? Yes, absolutely. That timeline is ambitious to me.
Hey, Alec, that's just one a week for you for a year.
Yeah. Actually, when you put it that way, that sounds like a nice light schedule.
I was going to say, I know you've done much worse.
Chris, I don't know if you know this. There was a year where I read a trade a day and wrote it up for our website. That is what Brian is alluding to.
A day?
A day. On top of reading my regular weekly comics, I read like the equivalent of 3,000 issues of comics that year. It was...
That's too much.
Insane.
Like, he told us this idea, and that's exactly what we said. You're insane. This is crazy.
And then, like, every time we get together to game night for the next year, I'm just sitting there with my laptop, being like, "No, you guys got this. I'm here, and I'm with you guys. I'm paying attention. I'm having a great time. I need to write this."
That's crazy. That's too much reading.
Yes, it is.
I don't even know how you process that much reading.
I've probably forgotten half of it already at this point, if I'm being honest. Like, definitely some of those books, I'm like, I know I read this. I cannot tell you what was in it.
Yeah. That's the kind of problems I was thinking you're probably going to have.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
We are at about an hour now. I am sure we will talk more, if not here, than on Minds at Yerk, about book 2 a little closer to its release. Do you want to, can you, if not, I can cut this bit if you want, talk about the chicken hair news at all before we wrap it up?
It's basically just what's already kind of out there. There's a movie coming out. It's already well into production. I know I posted a bunch of stills on my Twitter and Instagram, but I actually got to see like an 8-minute, it's like a highlight reel kind of thing, but it was so good. And I watch
Awesome.
a lot of animated movies, like, good and bad, and the animation was just top notch, and I was not expecting that. I was expecting somewhere middle of the road because it's a smaller studio that's doing it. But everything I've read is like they're calling it like their most ambitious animated movie to date, and I'm really excited that that's my thing, but I still didn't know what to expect, and I was expecting I don't know. I guess I was hoping for the best, but expecting the worst when I watched this thing, and I was just blown away by the quality of the animation.
That's awesome.
So I'm really looking forward to this thing coming out sometime in 2022.
Sweet.
I think they'd blow it if they didn't try to bring it out around Easter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a chicken and a rabbit. I mean, come on.
Like, that's most of an old Cadbury commercial right there.
Pretty much. Oh man, if we could get him on some Cadbury stuff or something.
Oh, there you go.
Chicken hair Easter candy, I'd buy all of it.
I did appreciate the chicken hair Easter eggs in Camp Whatever too.
Yes. I try to throw in as many of those things as I can just for my own. There's actually I know you're talking about the chicken and hair diner.
Yeah.
Well, but also the anagram.
What?
The chick churries or whatever. It's just chicken hair rearranged.
Oh, is it? Because those are actually cryptids.
Oh, I thought that was you having some fun with their names, because I'm almost positive that is an anagram of chicken hair.
You. If anybody would be able to just identify an anagram, it would be you.
Wow,
that's the most Alex bullshit. About this. Yeah,
that's like a cryptid thing in and of itself. There you go, more conspiracy.
Yeah, those are from like my hours and hours on cryptid sites doing the research, taking notes and stuff.
Someone listening is going to be like, "No, there's one extra letter, Alex. Fuck you."
That's his middle initial.
Thank you. See, hear that? Heard it here first.
That's right.
Thank you, Chris, for joining us. It has been
thanks for
a
having me.
blast.
Definitely.
Well, I hope I wasn't too boring.
No, not at all.
I get a little wordy sometimes and get a little off topic. So,
And you fit right in.
all right, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Secrets of Camp Whatever, Animorphs, Chicken Hair. If you really want to hear Chris lose his mind, come listen to the arc of Minds at Yerk we're doing right now, where he is guesting for every book of Humanimorphs. Maybe the worst books ever written.
They might be. They really might be. They're. Oh, by the way, I put some in that free library. That free little library. I put the whole set in that free little library for somebody.
Oh, one day you're gonna walk or drive past it, and it's just gonna be on fire.
Is this a give a book, take a book thing?
Kinda, yeah. Like there's
okay.
lots of neighborhoods around here, but that do that. But then where my son plays soccer, it's like behind an elementary school in their field, and I walk around the school, just kind of walking while he's at practice, and they have one of those little libraries outside, just filled with books. You can just come take one or put some in. I put the entire series in there. Entire series. I mean, probably some kids would like it, but
well, and they're a lot of fun to talk about.
I've learned a lot, but mostly about the co-hosts.
Brian, did you have anything else before we wrap it up?
You know what? I'll ask. This is a question that I generally ask all of our interviews, and that is, if you had the opportunity to do either a character or an IP that you've kind of always been attracted to, what would it be?
I remember being extremely jealous when I can't remember what publisher did it. It's been a while now. They did the Muppets. I'm not sure if it was the Muppet Show or whatever, but anything Jim Henson, like I would be on top of that so fast. Like my hand would be the first one in the air. Anything Jim Henson, especially Muppet related though, I would just love to do that because that was growing up for me. Jim Henson was literally the biggest influence on me.
Okay. That's a great answer.
That is a great answer. I love it.
Chris, do you have any last words?
I got none. None. I've used up all of my good words over the last hour.
Then thank you again. I've already said check out Chris's stuff, and I'll say it again when we cut back to the regular episode. But we hope to. I'm sure we'll have you back at some point in the future. You've got too much stuff going on for us.
We know there's more Camp Whatever books coming out at some point. So.
There is. Well, thanks for having me, guys. It was fun. I appreciate the time too.
Yep, of course, anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks again to Chris Grine for sitting down with us and talking about his work. Definitely go check out Animorphs. Definitely go check out Secrets of Camp Whatever. I don't know if you had this thought too, Brian, but I kind of expect it. I could not help but think while I read this book that it would be great for people who really love Gravity Falls.
100% there is a super, super strong Gravity Falls vibe to this, yeah.
I know Chris said that he didn't have anything in mind when he wrote it, and I absolutely believe that.
Oh, I do too.
There's no reason to think it's just trying to be that, but I think if you dig Gravity Falls, you should absolutely check out this book.
Yeah, and I will say it is absolutely all ages. This is
yes,
yeah. This is a fun book.
Now let's talk about this week's books.
And I'm guessing from the title of this first one you had on here, this is not an all ages book.
Well, probably not. I think both covers have dildos on them, so that's usually a good indicator. This first book is Alice in Leatherland, written by Yolanda Zanfardino with art by Elisa Romboli. This is a, I believe, sort of queer/lesbian, coming of age is not the right term, but sort of like self-exploration adventure in San Francisco.
Okay.
There are some preview pages out. It looks like a lot of fun. We talked about it when it was solicited. I think Jen and I did. I don't remember if you were on that episode.
I don't think I was.
We were both very excited for this book. It's through Black Mask, if memory serves. So definitely excited for that. The next book up, Brian and I have talked about before. We were given a chance to read the first issue ahead of time. The Many Deaths of Lila Starr, #1. Written by Ram V, art by Felipe Andrade, with color assists by Ines Amaro, and letters by And World Design.
Yeah, this was this very, very much recommend. This is a very different book, but I really, really dug it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, surprisingly funny, I think, was sort of our takeaway.
Yeah.
I think if you read about it, it's easy to assume maybe this is heady and, you know, a reflection on death and mortality, and it is that, but it's that by way of like a funnier sort of entryway than just maybe what you'd expect.
And for those of you who are interested, there's a variant cover called the Death Foil cover.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Be aware.
Champions #6. Normally a #6 wouldn't make it on here, but Champions was originally announced as a 5-issue miniseries.
Yep.
So you might have missed that there is a #6. We also have a new creative team coming on. Danny Lore writes. Art is by Luciano Vecchio. Colors are by Federico Blay. And letters are by Clayton Cowles. Danny Lore is someone we've talked about every now and then. They wrote Queen of Bad Dreams for Vault a couple years back, which I absolutely loved. They've done some one-shots and backups. They've had stories in Marvel Voices. They are a really solid writer, and I'm excited to see them on an ongoing.
Yeah,
Marvel.
well, and that's what I wanted to point out, to be clear, is this is not just like, oh, it's a now it's a 6-issue series. No, this is going to be an ongoing for now. Yeah.
And this is about this arc starts with the Champions infiltrating Roxxon to shut down this like awful mobile app that they've put out. We also have the first issue of The Mighty Valkyries. This is lettered by Joe Sabino and features 2 stories. One is following Jane Foster and is written by Jason Aaron and Torrin Grunbeck, with colors by with art by Mattia De Julius. The other story is about the new Valkyrie, who was introduced in the King in Black tie-in Valkyries series. This is written as well by Torrin Grunbeck, with art by Erica Durso and colors by Marcio Meniz. Obviously, we loved all of Jason Aaron's Thor run. Everything that Aaron and Grunbeck have done with Jane Foster since has also been excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Mattia De Julius has done work with them on at least some of that as well. So, very excited to get more of these characters.
Very, very much so, yes.
Then we come to a book that I maybe am just, like, existentially vibrating in excitement about.
It is something you and I both picked up on and pretty much predicted, I think you very clearly, when the whole Krakoan, the Jeff Lemire Dawn of X stuff started, like...
Brian, you just slipped into another timeline. Jonathan Hickman.
Oh, what did I say?
You said Jeff Lemire.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, you're right. Wow, that was just, don't know where brains conflated those, but sure, okay.
Brian's over on Earth 26.
Yes. No, but that we both picked up on, which was absolutely, we knew that a Nightcrawler-led mutant religion was going to happen.
Well, and there's that issue specifically. I think it's one of the ones I brought to our favorites of 2020 episode.
Yep.
There's an issue that ends with Nightcrawler saying, "I think I need to start a mutant religion."
Yes. Yep.
This is that. It's written by Cy Spurrier, who we love.
Yeah.
Art is by Bob Quinn, colors are by Javier Tartaglia, and letters are by Clayton Cowles. We have the Women of Marvel one-shot. Writers include, but are not limited to, Natasha Alterici, Sophie Campbell, Nadia Shamas, Elsa Suneson, Ann Toole, and others. Artists include Eleonora Carlini, Joanna Estep, Skylar Patridge, Kay Zama, and others. Marvel's been pretty good lately about putting out the lists of who's writing what for these anthologies. I couldn't find one for this one. But very excited for some of the creators and characters and teams on this book. And then Brian.
Yes.
Last one. Tell me about Old Guard Tales Through Time.
Yeah, so super quick before I talk about this particular book, if you don't know, this was a Greg Rucka miniseries that happened probably about a year and a half ago or so. It is now a Netflix series, which is actually pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And this is going to be an anthology book about a lot like Black Hammer Visions, where there's
Yeah.
different teams that come on to tell different stories of the old guard, the characters in different parts of time. This first one is Greg Rucka and Andrew Wheeler again, but some of the folks who are going to be coming up are Vita Ayala, Brian Michael
Yes.
Bendis, Kelly Sue DeConnitt, Matt Fraction. So yeah, just know that this is going to be really, really, really good. So
Awesome.
yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
In that case, we would like to thank Chase Parker for our intro voiceover this week. I actually spent about 3 hours catching up with Chase on the phone a couple of nights ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Panelology is a member of the Certain POV network. If you're looking for other cool podcasts about popular culture, go check out certainpov.com. You can visit us at panelologypodcast.com, support us at patreon.com/panelology, get merch at bit.ly/panelologymerch, capital P, capital M, or send us questions, comments, or whatever at bit.ly/panelologymailbag, capital P, capital M. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian. You know what you should do this week, Alex?
Same thing I do every week. Try to take over the world.
Go read comics.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.